Welcome back, people. We are just over halfway on our journey to learning how to play the Grudge by Tool on the drum kit. And if you're just joining us for the first time, this is part 3 of 4 of this series. So before we dive into the material in this video, make sure you check out lessons 1 and 2, and I will leave links in the description so you can go check those out and then meet us back here. So let's dive into it. Today we are picking up at the 5-minute and 12-second mark in the original track with a groove that we have seen before. This one is originally from lesson number 2, and I called it the verse tom groove. So again, definitely refer to video number 2 if you need greater detail. I'm going to show you what that sounds like very quickly and just make a few notes before we move on. So hopefully that pattern looks familiar to you. Good news for this one is the pattern is actually a little bit simpler this time around. Beforehand, on the turnaround of each of those repetitions of the pattern, the orchestration between the snare and the toms changes. This time around, it's the same every time. We are playing this pattern a total of 12 times. The first 4, we are catching our china on the downbeat. If you don't have one, it doesn't really matter. You can hit really any crash. But an important thing to note whenever we do catch a crash on this pattern is whichever hand is not hitting the cymbal, we want to make sure that that's catching one of the floor toms to keep that nice foundation and keep the rhythm moving and not feeling like we're losing any steam. So for the first 4 repetitions, we're catching a crash on the downbeat of every rep. And then for the following 8 repetitions, we're only catching a crash on every 4th. And the last thing to note here is that on the 8th repetition of this pattern, we are going to be throwing in a triplet 16th fill down the toms. And that will take place in the same spot as the typical turnaround. So instead of, we're going to do this. In context with the rest of the pattern, it sounds like this. So that kick double is landing in the exact same place. We're just replacing the 16th notes that we normally did there between the snare and the toms into triplet 16ths, where we start on the snare and run down the rack toms, hitting the floor tom, and then landing on beat 1 with the crash cymbal. Now, I know I threw a lot of numbers at you there in terms of repetitions, where to put cymbals in what spot, so that will make much more sense when I demo this for you. I'm going to do it at a slower tempo and then up at album tempo along with a click track. Moving right along. So the next section I'm calling the tom interlude, for lack of a better term. This section is once again in 5/4, and we are going to play this pattern a total of 4 times with just a slight variation on the 4th. The rest are the exact same. Unfortunately, like a lot of the other patterns in this song, our right hand is going to be doing straight 8th notes the entire time, so that's very manageable. Here's what that pattern looks like all together, and then we'll go ahead and break it down. All right, so what's going on here with the right hand? Again, straight 8th notes. So we start with a crash on beat 1, and then we're pretty much living on the high floor tom for the rest of this pattern, except for the very last 8th note on the and of 5. So not too bad there. Now, when the left hand comes in, that is going to create that 3 against 2 polyrhythm feel. This is what that sounds like. So the hands will start together, kind of do their own thing, and then land together again every 3rd note on the right hand. And the orchestration of the left hand on the kit is as follows. Now here's both hands together. And the last piece we need to add to this groove is the kick drum, the very first of which will go on beat 1 at the top of every repetition along with our crash cymbal. And then the rest of the kicks in this pattern are going to go 1/16th note before our hands hit together. So pay attention to that pattern as I do this slowly. That makes it a lot easier to remember where those kicks are going, and it feels pretty natural as well. And that's all there is to that one. I'll go ahead now and do that with the click at both tempos. For this next section, we have the return of what I'm calling the thematic rhythm. I cover this in lesson number 1. I think I called it main groove number 2 in that video. But this essentially serves as like the signature rhythm of this song, and that sounds like this. And when that returns in this section, we are doing that on both floor toms in unison with both hands at the same time, as well as the returning kick pattern that we covered last time as well. And again, check out lesson number 1 in this series if you'd like a more detailed breakdown for that part. So we are going to repeat that pattern a total of 4 times on our floor toms. And then we're going to move up to where our right hand is going to be on the high floor tom and our left hand is going to be on our low rack tom. And the kick pattern here is going to remain the exact same. The only difference is that we're going to be catching accents on our crash cymbals and our snare drum. The rhythm is staying the same between the hands. It's still the same thematic rhythm, but we are going to be adding those accents between the crashes. So here's what that sounds like. Again, note that the rhythm is not changing at all. We are just moving it along different surfaces and adding accents. So I'm going to run that one more time, much slower. Make sure with those accents, the rim shots are nice and strong on the snare drum to really make that pop. Now I'm going to go ahead and demo that for you with the click track at both tempos. Next up is another pattern that we covered in lesson 1, and this is our kick subdivision ladder. As this pattern comes back for the second time, it's pretty much the exact same as it was the first time around. The only difference is that instead of catching the ride cymbal with our right hand, we're catching crashes and we're playing a little bit louder. Both hands are just going to be doing quarter notes the entire time, and we are building up the subdivisions with our double kick. And again, if you'd like a more detailed breakdown of this part, you can find that in lesson 1 of this series. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to go straight into the demo along with the click track. So after our kick build, we have a little bit of a pause, and then when we come back in, it is again the return of another pattern that we covered in our original lesson, and that is our main flam groove that's comprised of a Swiss Army triplet followed by a flam tap, starting with the right hand lead and then going into all that with the left hand lead. And that sounds like this as a refresher. And it's worth repeating. I find it much easier to think of this as a rhythmic melody, a pattern of 1-2, 1-2-3, 1-2. And notice how that pattern is the same in the left hand. It's just a little offset when it's built up from those rudiments. And before we move on for this section, I do want to note that Danny is using electronic pads here. He's got a huge drum kit, so you can orchestrate this really however you want, whatever gets you going. For this, I am going to have the first 2 notes of the right hand pattern on the floor tom and the remainder on the low rack tom. Here's what that sounds like. And then for the left hand, the first 2 notes of that pattern are going to be on the high rack tom, and the remainder is going to be on the snare drum. Do keep in mind that is going to be offset with the pattern on the right hand when we put them together. So here's what that sounds like isolated. And I almost forgot to mention, before we go into this section, during that pause, we want to disengage our snare wires. We no longer need them for the rest of the song. Both hands together. Cool, so we are gonna run that pattern the exact same 8 times. On the 8th repetition, we are gonna cut that off after we finish the right hand lead. Here's what that sounds like all together with the click. Okay, my friends, now we are getting to the juicy stuff. So this takes us right into the iconic scream section of this song. This is a massive sounding part, and it's got a super sick drum pattern under it. And the good news is this is pretty much all stuff that we've covered before, just with a couple slight modifications. This pattern is primarily based off of the main Flam groove that we just covered, with our Swiss Army triplet and our Flam tap between the 2 hands. Now, that pattern is a pattern of 5. And what's going to happen in this section is we have 3 of those measures of 5 followed by 1 measure of 6. And those are 8th notes. So we have 5/8, 5/8, 5/8, 6/8 for a total of 21 beats. And the orchestration of that pattern is as follows. We're going to start with our right hand on the low floor tom, and the high floor tom is going to get the rest of the pattern on the right hand. And a very similar concept with the left hand. The high rack tom is going to get the first 2 beats, and then the low floor tom is going to get the rest of the pattern. So we do keep our kick at the top of each measure with our low floor tom. However, we add another one as soon as the right hand moves to the higher floor tom. So by itself, just the right hand in the kick, this is what that sounds like. Now adding in the left hand. And that covers our measures of 5. The measure of 6 is almost the same thing, except instead of our left-handed lead Flam tap, we are going to replace the Flam tap with a flammed mill. And if you're not familiar with that rudiment, it's essentially, we start with our flam, and then it's a double stroke with the left hand followed by a right left. So very slowly, that sounds like this. Now I'll play that without the flam. Double stroke with the left, then right left. All right, now I will put that into the full measure of 6. Now I will do that full 21 measure pattern. And the last couple things to mention here about this groove is, 1, we are adding a crash cymbal at the very top of each 21 measure cycle. And the second thing is that for this to work, for this to sound right, have the right vibe and energy, you need to be beating the crap out of your drums. Hit them like they owe you money. If you are just kind of tapping them here, this is going to sound weak, it's going to sound lame, and it's just not going to work. Big difference between these two. Versus. And honestly, I'd be hitting them even harder if this mic wasn't in my way. So the limit does not exist. You can just hit it as hard as you can. So with all that said, I will now demo that for you at both tempos with the click track. And coming out of the scream section, we go into what I call the let go section, where Maynard kind of keeps chanting the let go in the ostinato fashion. And we are once again going to be using that main flam pattern that the last section was primarily based around, with our Swiss Army triplet and our flam tap. To start, this is all going to be orchestrated on the 2 floor toms, with our kick at the top of each measure of 5/8, sounding like this. And we're going to be at a lower dynamic now. We're going to let this simmer. So we are going to play that pattern just as I did 8 times, with just the floor toms and the kick at the top of each repetition. And this is where things get interesting now. So we're going to run that 8 more times, except we're going to be adding in quarter notes with our hi-hat foot. And this is actually really cool, because what this does is, between our hand pattern and our right foot, that is implying 5/8. In our left foot, doing quarter notes, is implying 5/4. So you can look at this as either 8 cycles of 5/8 or 4 cycles of 5/4, whatever makes the most sense to you. And as I do this, pay close attention to where the quarter note lands in relation to the hand pattern. With every other measure of 5/8, the quarter note is going to land on a different spot. On the left side, we don't reach the 1 again until we've done 2 measures of 5/8 with the hands. So I'm just going to play it, and hopefully everything I'm saying starts making sense. This is a little tricky, and it can be frustrating to get this coordination down at first. So take it slow, be patient, be intentional, and you will definitely get this. Can't tell you how many times I've played this and it's still tricky for me. I'm going to speed that up a little bit for you. Cool. So remember, we are hitting our kick drum at the top of every measure of 5/8 with our hand pattern. And something else I'd also like to mention about this part is to really get that feel right. Definitely want to make sure you're accenting all of your flams. That's going to kind of provide like the rhythmic counterpoint to your left foot quarter notes and create a really groovy sound. So here's that. I'm going to try to over exaggerate the flams with the hands. Very cool drum part. Moving on from that, we are now going to move from our floor toms to having our right hand on the high floor tom and having our left hand on our high rack tom, doing the same exact hand pattern. That sounds like this on those two drums. Again, accenting those flams. We are going to keep our steady quarter note in there, and we're going to be adding a kick drum. So instead of just being on beat 1 of each 5/8 cycle, it's going to be on 1 and the and of 1. And as you just saw there, we have a little bit of a transition piece heading into the grand finale of the song. What that is on the last cycle of 5/8 in this pattern. We are going to do it as normal up until the end of the right hand lead. So we're going to have one Swiss Army triplet and a flam tap with our right hand lead, followed by a flam sounding like this. And then immediately after that last flam in a 16th note subdivision, that's going to be followed by a kick and then 3 flams between our snare drum and our floor tom, like so. Now I'm going to put that in with the rest of that pattern. And that right there can be another very tricky section. So again, take it slow, break it down to the basics, and build up the tempo as you get comfortable with it. Now I'm going to plug that in with the rest of that pattern up on the rack toms. going to go ahead and put it all together. I'm going to run the whole let go section along with the click at both tempos. Here it is. Friends, I have good news and bad news for you. The good news is you have learned the vast majority of the Grudge up to this point. That is no small feat, and I congratulate you. Which leads me to the bad news. I am going to be saving the grand finale for the next video. I want to give it my full attention and give it its own video to hone in on every minute detail. And for that reason, I've actually transcribed the entire thing. We're going to be going through it measure by measure, note by note. And I will be serving that up hot for you next week. Thank you so much once again for sticking around to the end of the video. If you found it helpful, if you enjoyed the video, do the standard YouTube stuff for me, please. It helps the channel out a ton. Go ahead and like the video. Leave me a comment down below. Any feedback is welcome. Any questions, stuff you want clarification on, let me know and I will get back to you. And until next week, have a good one and get practicing.